Tomorrow we recognize Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and everybody already knows the speeches. Everybody knows I have a dream. But today, I want to talk about the part of the story that usually gets skipped, how Martin Luther King ended up in Memphis, what was happening around him, and why his death didn't come out of nowhere. So let me start here. Y'all have seen the signs, the black and white photos, with black men marching through Memphis holding signs that say, "I am a man." Most people recognize the image, but a lot of people don't know the story behind those signs, and even fewer people realize that this movement lasts for months and is directly tied to why Dr. King was in Memphis and what ultimately happened to him that day. In February of 1968, black sanitation workers in Memphis were being treated horribly. They were paid less, they had no union protections, and they were assigned the oldest, most dangerous garbage trucks that the city owned. Those trucks didn't have proper safety switches, and the city knew they were unsafe, but they kept using them anyway. On February 1st, 1968, it was raining heavily. Two sanitation workers, Echo Cole and Robert Walker, were out doing their jobs. Black workers weren't given the same protections or shelter options white workers often had, so when the rain became unbearable, the men took cover in the back of the garbage truck, something that they always did. They weren't playing around, not being careless, just trying to stay dry while doing city work. The truck malfunctioned. The compact was suddenly activated, and both men were crushed to death. What made this a civil rights issue wasn't just how they died, it was what happened after. The city didn't shut the trucks down, they didn't fix the equipment, they didn't even take responsibility. Their families were given $500, and that was it. So the sanitation workers went on strike. What started as outrage turned into a movement that lasted from February through April. They organized, they held the line, and they marched holding signs that said, "I am a man." And those signs weren't just a slogan. They were saying, "We are human, we deserve dignity, we deserve protection." As the strike grew, Martin Luther King was called to Memphis, because this wasn't just about garbage trucks. It was about economic justice, labor rights, and the value of black life. Dr. King came more than once to support the workers. On March 28th, he helped lead a large march downtown, and that march included students. Thousands of young people skipped school just to participate, but Memphis was tense. After peacefully marching and singing "We Shall Overcome," chaos broke out. Windows were smashed, stores were looted, and the police responded aggressively with clubs, tear gas, and gunfire. Hundreds were arrested, dozens were injured, and during that chaos, a police officer shot and killed 16-year-old Larry Payne, and that changed everything. The city declared martial law, a curfew was imposed, and National Guard troops flooded Memphis. Dr. King left the city, but he didn't abandon it. On April 2nd, Larry Payne's funeral was held at Claiborne Temple. The family insisted on an open casket service. After the funeral, the sanitation workers marched again, peacefully. On April 3rd, 1968, Martin Luther King stood at Mason Temple and delivered the speech called "I've Been to the Mountaintop." When you listen to it now, it sounds like a man who knew exactly how dangerous this moment was. He talked about not fearing death, he talked about having seen the promised land, and he said that he might not get there with us. The very next day, April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, and that's when he was assassinated. The man accused of killing him was arrested, but from that moment on, there has always been speculation about why it happened, who he was working for, and whether he acted alone. And here's why that speculation has never gone away. Because this isn't conspiracy. This is documented history. Before Memphis, before the strike, before the motel, the FBI was already targeting Martin Luther King. They followed him, recorded him, and they tried to destroy his reputation. They sent him an actual letter encouraging him to harm himself. They threatened to expose him. They tried to blackmail him using secret recordings. This isn't something somebody made up. These are government records. So you have to ask the question, if Martin Luther King was about nonviolence, if he was organizing people peacefully, if he was uniting workers and communities, why was he considered such a threat? And that's where history tells the real story. Because there is a certain kind of power that makes people uncomfortable, especially when it comes from a black man organizing others, demanding dignity, and refusing to back down. And that's why knowing your history matters. Not just the speeches, not just the holiday, but the lens people will go to stop powerful movements and powerful black leaders. There is more power in us than we're taught to believe. And once you see that, you'll start recognizing the pattern. Remember to comment, like, and share, and take y'all kids to YouTube Urban Roots Learning so that they can learn the kid-friendly version. Peace.